Gaming is going to be absolutely terrible in the next 10 years, and we have two things to blame: smartphones and Gen Alpha. Yes, a generation of people are going to absolutely destroy the gaming industry, and if you stick around, I'll show you how. So before we begin, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's start the video. To understand why Gen Alpha would destroy gaming, we have to first start with smartphones. I was born in the 90s, so I've seen the shift from an absolute unit of a phone to a smaller one where you can play Snake, and from that to what we eventually have today. When smartphones first came out, they had cool games you could play to pass the time on the crapper or at high school when the teacher's not looking. Angry Birds, Temple Run, and many other games. Nothing about their gameplay was innovative or original, but at least they were unique on the platform and not a duplicate of each other. Smartphone gave a lot of hope to gaming nerds like me that eventually when the hardware gets better, you'd be able to play AAA titles on the go. Older classic titles like the Game Boy Pokemon games, games that were ported to mobile like the older GTA games, and even classic MMOs like old school RuneScape. All of the above combined with the ubiquity of smartphones meant that the gaming market would grow and you would have more people that play the titles you love. Sadly, all of the games I mentioned are a very small portion of the mobile market. The vast majority of it falls into four categories. The first one is games that are high effort with pretty good gameplay, but all of the progression is strictly tied to microtransactions and loot boxes. The second category is of games that are relatively simple to develop with a simple addictive gameplay loop and slow progression. That slow progression can be made fast with purchases. The third category includes really low effort games that just spam you with annoying ads. They're usually a reskin of a simple game template where you just change the graphical assets and you can pass it off as a new game. The fourth category are casino games where you can put money into the game but not take it out. It's either straight up gambling or abstracted enough so you won't feel like you're gambling. For the first category, you have games like Brawl Stars where you need to open loot boxes to gain money and points that are absolutely mandatory to upgrade your characters. Those loot boxes are bottlenecked by a battle pass which limits how many of them you can get for free in a season. You also have a daily limit of 2 or 3 that you can get simply from playing the game. For the second category of games, you have the usual idle games where you actively farm a resource and then use it to upgrade and buy things that will let you gain that resource passively, much like the original cookie clicker game. The other type that falls under this category is very similar to idle games in its incremental gameplay, but instead you walk actively around the map and purchase upgrades that make the process easier. The games in this category typically start off with a bang. You get a ton of early progress to trigger as much dopamine as possible in your brain, but then it gets harder and harder to level up, so you can either watch an unskippable ad or drop some money so you can see those numbers going up again more frequently. The third category can be summed up easily by the gameplay you're seeing on screen right now. This type of games infected the Android Play Store and are absolutely spammed across the platform. At the end of every level, the game will prompt you to double your points with an unskippable ad, and even if you choose to ignore it and not watch the ad, it will pop up anyway in most cases. The mobile gaming market is a complete dumpster fire, and Gen Alpha are the tons of gasoline that will make it explode in our face. The vast majority of Gen Alpha grew up with a smartphone in their hands, playing those terrible games that became their baseline. They never grew up playing old titles that were complete on launch and didn't sell you anything else after you bought the game. Instead, they grew up watching endless amount of YouTubers opening Brawl Stars chests and FIFA card packs just so they could get that super rare player that will make their team complete. At least until the next special edition comes out, which will then they buy it again, or until the end of the year where your team will wipe out anyway because the game has a new release every year. Yes, we were the idiots to accept such bad practices in our games, and now the next generations will grow up with it as if it's the norm. I can't convey to you how demoralizing it was to find out my younger nephew bought Brawl Stars chest with real life money. I can't convey how saddening it was to see my niece cry uncontrollably when I said I'll buy her anything else except for that stupid Stumble Guy loot box that might contain the super rare skin she wants. To them it's normal, that's all they know. In 10 to 15 years, when they will have their own money to spend, they'll be way more accepting of terrible practices, even in paid titles. They'll start voting with their wallets for things we won't forgive today. If there isn't a serious shakeup in the near future, I expect that in 15 years, companies will ask you to pay for extra save slots. They will tie all of the game's progression into loot boxes just like they used to from Brawl Stars. They will be accepting of bottlenecks to the already terrible progression system, and you would obviously be able to skip those bottlenecks with real-life money, which Gen Alpha would pay for without thinking twice. Most mobile games today make the majority of their money from whales who spend ungodly amounts of money on pay-to-win games. In 10 to 15 years, they won't have to rely on those whales because they will have Gen Alpha paying them like automatons carefully crafted in a lab where they watched thousands of videos of YouTubers opening loot boxes. A lab where their friends are shaming them or have more social status because they unlocked more characters in a game where the bigger wallet wins. A lab where they were fed with a steady diet of games with the most predatory monetization schemes and ecosystems designed to push you as far as they can to spend real-life money on their product. I honestly don't see a way out of it if major legislation won't pass in the near future and classify paid loot boxes as real-life gambling. Either that or strictly forbid them from games entirely. On their own, surprise mechanics like loot boxes are not the enemy. They are essentially the main attraction in MMO boss fights, where in every kill you manage to get, you have the chance to gain legendary loot. It only becomes a problem when loot boxes are the only way forward in your game and you can buy a shortcut for that with real-life money. If you watched the video to this point, please drop a like on the video, join the discussion in the comment section, and watch the next video on screen if you want to go on another doomer-pilled gaming rant.